Greetings, friends and Firebirds fans, and welcome to the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Fire and Ice, the official podcast of your Coachella Valley Firebirds of the American Hockey League. Coming to you from Palm Desert, California, a mere soon-to-be-named new head coach away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. I'm your host, Judd Spicer. Along with this regular broadcast endeavor, also again, over the course of this second season, had the privilege of serving as your Firebirds insiders. Those articles, per all things Coachella Valley Firebirds, may be found online at cvfirebirds.com. That's your online home and hub for everything, including ticketing, roster, merchandise, community information. Also where you're going to want to go to check out 2024-2025 season ticket membership information. Again, cvfirebirds.com. Also got some great info on there about the upcoming AHL All-Star Classic, which will be hosted right here in Palm Desert, California, February 2nd and 3rd, 2025. Per the presenting sponsor of this endeavor, Desert Willow Golf Resort, also right here in sunny Palm Desert, California, home to the Mountain View and Firecliff courses, respectively. 36 holes over there at DW. Not to mention the awesome and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy for all your swing instruction and tutelage needs. A couple notes on DW. They are undergoing a facility maintenance process right now. That's July 1 through July 4. After that, pop right back open. You can get your tee times for the Mountain View course. You're going to want to make those online at desertwillow.com. Not alone on this season ending, season closing, season's appreciation, and yes, season's finale episode of the Fire and Ice podcast. Kind of a double dip. It's going to start with a media roundtable. Bit of a look back on what was and what will be here in Firebirds country. Joining me for said roundtable, our old pals Blake Arthur. He's the sports director at KESQ. Tim O'Brien, sports anchor for NBC Palm Springs, also your in-arena host over at Acrisure, and Chad Powers, columnist for the Desert Sun newspaper. That can be coming up here directly. In addition, an epilogue interview with several of these same media members, an epilogue interview with Dan Bylsma, along with the aforementioned Tim O'Brien and Chad Powers. Had a chance to ask Dan a few final questions, express our appreciation before he makes his way yonder northwest to start his work in earnest as head coach of the NHL's Seattle Kraken, of course, the parent club of our Coachella Valley Firebirds. Also should note that joining in that media conversation was Blake's colleague from KESQ, Kenji Ito, also joining in on that media conversation. Before we get to both of those segments, however, just a personal interjection along with the appreciation and gratitude for all of you and for tuning in to this program for the past 2 years. Appreciation, of course, goes to the subject matter of this Fire and Ice podcast, this program, our Coachella Valley Firebirds. 2 years, 2 terrific runs to the Calder Cup Championship playoffs. Yes, ultimately past did prove prologue per the eventual result, but that takes nothing away from the run or runs. It takes nothing away from the journey or journeys that we've enjoyed under Dan Bylsma over the course of these past 2 seasons. And hey, kudos and credit to the Hershey Bears. We lose with grace. They beat us 2 times in a row. But let us not weep with what wasn't. Let us not lament. Let us not regret. Let us instead celebrate and acknowledge and appreciate the fact that now for a second year we played until the summer solstice. We played past the NBA Finals. Last year we played longer than the Stanley Cup. This year we played as long as the Stanley Cup Finals. And this summer, this early summer, while 60 other professional hockey teams on the continent were either fishing or playing golf, we were in it. We were still dueling. We were still playing. We were fighting to bring that championship back here to the desert sands. And for that, we should give thanks. All right, friends. Let us now turn our attention to this episode, this finale episode's Media Roundtable segment. All right, Firebirds flock. As prefaced for this season-ending episode of the Fire and Ice podcast, we bring back one final time, as my beloved Mad Magazine phrase in its masthead, the usual gang of idiots. From KESQ, we'll be the sports director. Welcome back, Blake Arthur. From NBC Palm Springs and your Acrisure in-arena host, Tim O'Brien, and columnist for the Desert Sun newspaper, Shad Powers. Hello, fellas.
Hey,
Hey,
Judd.
Judd. Thanks
Yeah,
for having
man.
us on.
Appreciate you guys all having time to come back for this season finale episode. To borrow some further words and get us going, let's go chronologically a little bit. We know what has taken place to bring us to this point in the season, but in the words of the late, great Fred Willard, what happened? What happened? It's now 2 years in a row where we've made it to the finals, obviously, only to lose four of the five final games of said Calder Cup Championship Series. Last year, those four of those games were one goal wins by Hershey. This season, three of those were one goal games, all victories by Hershey. Blake Arthur, since you made the cross country trek from here to central Pennsylvania, kind of a two-part question. We'll start with you, your assessment of the final series.
Well, I got to be honest. I thought the Firebirds had it this year. I thought that they were coming in fresh. The Bears were coming off that series with Cleveland, and I thought the Firebirds were the better team, and they showed that for much of the series. I don't think they got the goaltending they maybe needed. I think Hunter Shepard made some great saves, and the margin is so slim in these finals, and we saw that. I think the Firebirds outshot the Bears 5 out of the 6 games, 4 out of the 6 games, something like that. So I, I thought they played well. In this time of year, you need a little bit of luck on your side, and the bounces just didn't go their way. And I think that's what makes it more painful for this team and this organization to 2 years in a row. You feel like you're right there on the cusp, and a bounce here, a break there, and it just doesn't go your way. And so definitely unfortunate. We'll see what happens going forward, but it was an incredible 2 year run. I mean, really fun to be part of this ride and see this team go all the way to the finals. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we didn't even have a hockey team. So a lot to be proud of for this organization, and definitely the community rallying around this team.
Undoubtedly. And for you, Blake, stick with you for a moment. You've seen Hershey, I guess we can say, unfortunately, raise high the Calder Cup 2 years in a
Yeah.
row. Last year, as we all had to witness, we saw it here in Palm Desert. This year, you also witnessed it. You, along with the Desert Sun's Jay Calderon, the local
Yes.
media, to make the cross country travel. Describe your experience seeing it this year in Hershey, Pennsylvania, in Giant Center.
Well, it's funny because I was working the entire game. We were, because of the time difference, we were live on the air from the 4 o'clock local hour up until the 7 o'clock hour. So basically the entire game. And we went down to the ice level, for the final moments when Fleury tied it up, and then obviously the overtime period. And I'll be honest, it was kind of you kind of black out. You don't really know what's going on. It's so loud in there. You're trying to do so many things, as Tim, I think, can attest to, being on TV and, having that producer in your ear and working with a photog. And so I was more working, and I don't think I really got to soak up and see it all as I wish I could have. But it was loud in there, and obviously the overtime winner was right in front of us. And it's just crazy to me, the finality of it, right? Just like a snap of the fingers, one team wins and another loses, and it's just the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And it was jubilation on one side and obviously heartbreak on the other.
Tim O'Brien, Birds had a 2-1 lead in this series. We were all jazzed up and jacked up after that Game 3 win here at Acrisure Arena. To again borrow from Fred Willard, after that, what happened?
Yeah, I think Hershey showed that they're a championship caliber team. They took advantage of the Firebirds not being able to put them away, go up 3-1, and they just never recovered, right? Hunter Shepard was able to steal two of those games out of the four wins. And, I think at that point, it was such a missed opportunity, right? We at one point, I think, what did we say? There's no way they lose 3 out of the next 5. That's not happening. And they couldn't get it done. And I think it was the refs. No, I'm just kidding. That was the big such a big narrative. But look, they didn't take advantage of being up 2-1 and having the next 2 at home. And Hershey proved how why they're back-to-back champs, and that's sports. And they just didn't get a little bit of puck luck, and here we are in the same situation as last year.
Chad Powers, we said over the course of the last 2 years, watching a lot of these games together. Again, we had a lead of 2-0 last year. We had a lead of 2-1 this year. What happened from there for this year's Calder Cup Finals as you see it?
Well, I mean, kind of like these guys have been saying, I think, Hershey happened, in that game 4, which certainly was pivotal. Like all games against Hershey, Hershey won 3-2. They pulled out that win, and we were all sitting in the post-game press conference. I've mentioned this to you, Judd. The 3 stars for Hershey were there at Akron Arena talking to us, and there was just something about their attitude and their mindset and the way they were talking that just made me kind of say, "Uh-oh," as a Firebirds supporter. It was weird. It was weird. It's a weird moment to reflect back on, but seeing these guys, they expected to win that game. They expect to win every close game, and they are comfortable in that. It reminds me of those, like, every 5 years you hear about a high school football team that goes for it on every 4th down. And part of the reason that works is because they're not freaked out by a 4th down at that point. That's how I feel about Hershey. Close games you think are like, everybody's nervous, and one screw up and it's over. They're not nervous in those moments, and they don't ever screw up. That's what it seems like at the end of a close game. So when I saw the quiet confidence these guys had, and at that point the series was now 2-2 with them having the home ice back, I had that sinking feeling, if you want to say that. As we all know, that the Firebirds really needed to win that game 5 at that point. I don't think any of us expected them to come back to Hershey and win twice necessarily. But it was painful, as painful as the previous year, perhaps more, just because I think they personally had more invested in it this year, winning it all, than they did last year. Of course, they wanted to last year, but everything about last year was kind of like fun and new. And when they lost last year, I think they had sort of an attitude of like, well, we'll be back next year. And they were right, and they were. But after this year's season, I don't think there's a feeling of that. Obviously, we know the coach is going to be gone, Bylsma. Many of the players probably won't be back. So anyway, that's why I think this one hurts a little more, even though it wasn't a game 7, heartbreaker like the previous year.
Well, as there was, of course, some juggling around with the schedule and the exit interviews as the Firebirds made their way back west. The conversation with Dan Bylsma, listeners can tune into that here shortly. Did reschedule the player exit interviews, which is to say both Blake and I, neither of us were able to get to that today. However, Shad and Tim were. Stick with you on this, Shad. From the player exit interviews, any particular quotes, sayings, emotions, players in particular that shared something that jumped out to you?
Yeah, we talked to maybe 5 or 6 of the main guys, and for one thing, even though the game was only 2.5 days ago, they're all sort of, as you have to in their line of work, they're over it, if you want to call it that. Of course, it will linger, but they're sort of, it's not like they're moping around still or sad. They're kind of professionals. They're ready to go. I think about that in a lot of sports. We, the fans, sometimes let it linger longer than the actual players in a devastating moment like that, because they've got other things to worry about. But yeah, so they're moving on, and of course, many of them are moving on right into free agency, the unusual lifestyle of a hockey player. So for example, Cole Lind, Devin Shore, these guys are guys who've been through that before. They're unrestricted free agents. July 1st, which is already, Monday, literally a week after their season finished, and they might find themselves on a new team, or moving, or staying, or they just don't know. So they were all sort of there. One thing that was cute is almost every player that had a kid brought their kid there today. We saw like 5 or 6 3-year-olds dressed up in hockey gear with Devin Shore's son had a full hockey gloves and a stick as he was walking around. So that was kind of cute to see that. Moments like that. Other than that, talked about summer vacations a little bit, a lot of weddings everybody's going to, things like that. But as far as reflecting on the season, of course they're broken up about it. I don't want to make it sound like they don't care. Of course that was heartbreaking to them, but they were able to really reflect on the last 2 years in a lot of ways because, like we're saying, some of these guys might not be Firebirds next year. And it was, they had just nothing but great things to say about their time in the desert, the fans, this remarkable 2 years they've had. It's just crazy. So that was kind of the various sentiments we heard out there today. I don't know, Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, Shad'll pass the baton
Oh,
right to you, Tim.
sorry, Tim.
Oh, good job, man. But your Tim, your takeaways from the player exit interviews, anything particular that leapt out to you, man?
Yeah, gratitude I felt was the common theme. They were just so thankful for the fan base and the community. Potsy and Cole Lynn, that they had stressed that they tell the younger guys, like, it's not like this anywhere else, right? You might have arenas that get nice crowds, but they don't care about you if they see it. And a few of the guys mentioned Costco and just shopping and being around and people stopping them and thanking them for bringing them a sport that they knew nothing about that was foreign, and thanking them for teaching them how to play. And one thing that stood out, I believe it was Cole Lynn, said he had mentioned there's no time here between when you play this deep. You're a free agent in 4 days, so you're going to learn pretty quickly whether or not you're going to be on a new team coming back. And he said there was a quote, being comfortable being uncomfortable, and he said you don't really get used to it, you just roll with it. It's the business. And I don't think it's lip service. Every one of them would want to come back here if they could. They know that's not the reality, but they've built something special here, and that's a tip of the cap to management and the organization, the community, fan base. It's been awesome. And there was a little bit of a somber tone at times. I think they realize this is it. And a few of the guys had mentioned, part of the business that is unfortunate is this team will never, even if some do come back, right, this team will never play together again from top down, all 4 lines and 6 defensemen. So, and that's just the business. And I had asked them, each guy, to describe it in one word, this season or this team. And I think 4 out of the 6 said brothers, and they didn't hear each other say that. So it was pretty cool to hear them use that word.
Blake, per yesterday's epilogue interview with Coach Bylsma, you were privy to the end of it. Your colleague, Kenji Ito, he did a fine job in your stead there. Something, and look, I'll add this, Blake. I mean, you had opportunity. I think, you're the only local guy to ask Dan Bylsma questions in the post game after Game 6, and the reaction of which was kind of a nationally recognized response that was on Twitter for days. A very raw, emotional response. Is there something else? Look, we got about 20 minutes with Dan yesterday. But was there something that you did not get to ask him, maybe that you wanted to ask him?
Well, I wanted to know who was going to be the coach at CV. I wasn't going to ask him that after the game. But obviously we're keeping tabs on that. But not really. I mean, I give Dan a lot of credit. He was very open and honest. I'd never seen him like that. I mean, we saw a little bit last year in the finals, him kind of pouring his heart out, if you will, to the media. But it wasn't like this. I mean, he had to step away from the mic a few times. He threw in a curse word, and he apologized. I mean, he apologized to the fan base for not bringing a title to the Valley. So, I mean, he took this loss really hard. And after the game, they were in the locker room for a long time. I mean, we were waiting and waiting and waiting, which is fine. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I mean, but they were just sitting there and wearing this loss. And, the locker rooms are right next to each other in Hershey. So you got the Bears absolutely just going crazy, partying, popping champagne, the booze, the whole bit. And then the Birds on the other side, handshakes and hugs. And I mean, that's just sports. Like Tim said, you got one winner and one loser. But like Tim said, gratitude was the theme. He was very thankful. He he had to reinvent himself, and he did. And now he's got a shot in the show. And we obviously wish him the best and going to miss him here. But yeah, he was very candid with us in that post game presser, and so was Max McCormick. He mentioned brotherhood and just the bond, and these hockey players, they put a lot into this, and I don't think we see that really in any other sport, to be honest. I heard Scott Van Pelt talking about the Stanley Cup Final the other day, and these hockey players they're just built different. There's just something about them that you don't see that in any other sport, and it's no disrespect to any other sport. It's just I don't really know how else to describe it other than saying it's different, and it means more than hockey to these guys.
Chad, as you recently wrote in one of your columns, I think it might have been after the Game 6 loss, you recognized the apology that Blake's question elicited, and you said no apology required. Certainly a statement and a very well-written paragraph and sentence that I certainly agreed with. Again, we had about 20 minutes with Dan yesterday. Anything that you didn't get a chance to ask him that maybe the day after you thought, oh, I wish I would have got that one in?
No, that's a good question. Not really. First of all, kudos to Blake for that good post-game interview after Game 6. That really did, elicit some great reaction, and I love to see that from Dan. So I think that's one thing we have all noticed. Of course, that was very emotional, but even when it's not that dire of circumstances, how Dan is feeling after a game. Sometimes he's chipper, sometimes he's, peeved, whatever. He doesn't. There's no mistaking it, right? We know that's one thing I like about Dan in a press conference situation. You know what he's thinking, basically, or at least how happy or unhappy he is, and so I think I've come to enjoy that about him, and I didn't really have a question that I wish I would have asked him, but I think we've all been saying, he knows, and the players know what they've accomplished here over the last 2 years isn't normal, and it isn't even a team that has 2 great years in a row. It's not the same as this. I mean, they really created something here in the desert, as we all know, and I think they all can feel that came across in some of the exit interviews today as well. Youth hockey happening in the desert, like Chris Drieger said today, and Tim hinted at there. The person that fills his bag at the grocery store talks to him about hockey all the time and recognizes him when he comes in. Things like that. Those players were saying that did not happen to me at other AHL stops, and so that was kind of a neat thing to hear. And I think Bylsma is proud of that too. He did say pride a couple times in that interview. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I have from thinking about Dan and what they accomplished. I had one stat that I looked up for that column. There's of the 32 current AHL teams, 22 of them have never been to 2 Calder Cups finals
in their history.
In their history,
Wow.
of the ones that exist right now. So think about that if you're a Firebirds fan, how lucky you are. So like I said, just to reiterate that again, 22 of the current 32 teams have never been to 2 Calder Cup finals. So we know we're lucky. It's heartbreaking to see them lose 2 in a row, but those are things that I think you take away from this season and can feel good about.
Tim, you got some great questions in, and the epilogue interview with Dan Bylsma also concluded it with a sentiment that we all share. I'm glad you concluded the chat with that, just letting him know how much we have appreciated what he's meant to our desert. Was there anything that you didn't get into that media interview with Dan?
No, not so much yesterday. Overall, I still want to know why they announced this during a playoff run in Seattle. That question is going to bother me for a while. And I want to know why he went away from Leighton Road in Game 6 and put Luke Henman back in. But none of that matters anymore. But no, it was more of a celebration. It was about him and his success, and we're going to miss him. And I think, he really was, looking back at it, I guess, when you say and you see you've gone to 2 finals, you could easily say he's the right man for the job. But I don't know that somebody without the experience and moxie that he had would have succeeded here with something from the ground up. So, he absolutely was the right guy for it.
Yeah, I was going to inquire if we had a few more minutes. He's a young guy. He's 53. Maybe we kind of forget that
Mhm.
sometimes. But like, where is he finding the energy? He has to be so
Yeah.
emotionally, if not physically taxed. I mean, we know what happened, but then to fly back here, to have time to chat with us, going to the draft starting Friday at the Sphere in Las Vegas, then going right to Seattle for their development camp, which I think is July 1 through 5 for the Kraken. Free agency, as Shad referenced, starts on Monday. No rest for the successful. Maybe he's on some kind of echinacea we don't know about, but I'm just going to ask him how deep he was going to have to dig to find the energy to turn and transition a very palpable page. Friends, you're tuning into the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort, closing out the season with our friends and colleagues, Blake Arthur, Tim O'Brien, and Shad Powers. Back to you, Blake. You referenced, yeah, we are curious about who the next coach of the CV Firebirds will be. Time is short, man. We are tick-tock to July. There are games that are played in October, and let's not dance around it. I mean, if you got somebody in your gut that you believe is going to be named the next head coach, I anticipate this is something that will happen sooner than later. I mean, how long can you wait? But if you have a name that you believe is either the right person or is the person that is going to be named, let's hear it.
Well, I think we can all agree Jessica Campbell is at the top of the list. I mean, aside from the X's and O's and from a hockey standpoint, but how do you not make this decision from a business standpoint? I mean, you make history. There's a pretty uh, large following out here for her to take over, and this is a welcoming area for that sort of thing. If you're kind of getting what I'm putting down, so I just think that she would be the top choice for me. But she could be up in Seattle as an assistant. So I don't know. I haven't really done much research into, other AHL coaches outside of CV. Obviously, Stu Bickle's an assistant. Maybe he gets a look. Who knows? But Campbell and Bickle would be the top two for me, just being in house.
Shad, we did broach that with Dan in our exit conversation with him, and he gave kind of some answers. We know that there's a lot of moving pieces that he wasn't going to answer or give us this, some kind of breaking news on who the next coach would be. Are you in concurrence with Blake? Jessica Campbell, next coach of the Firebirds, you believe?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that if you were making like an odds chart, you would have to put her on top. I keep coming back to, and I mentioned this to Tim today. I always go back to wondering if we're in our own bubble with the Firebirds people here. Like, we think about Jessica, we think about Stu, maybe even the Kansas City Mavericks coach Tad O'Had, my favorite name. And then outside of that, we're like, well, who else could it possibly be? But then cut to, maybe in the war room up in Seattle, they've got 20 applicants, 5 times better than Jessica and Stu. I don't know enough to know about that. So, imagine someone with Dan Bylsma's resume wanting to do the job. It'd be hard to overlook someone like that. But I think to Blake's other point, I think, just the whole sort of like storyline, the marketability, the X factor of having Jessica in the franchise, whether it's as the Firebirds coach or as an assistant, I think that will happen. I don't think they're going to make moves where the end result is she moves on to some other team or some other organization. I think they do covet her ability, I specifically asked players about Jessica today at the X interview, and to a man, they were all like so impressed with her X's and O's, her ability to communicate. Said it was different, very different than Dan, different than Stu, different than other coaches they'd had, and they appreciated that. So we're talking about Cole Lind, Shane Wright, I believe, talked about, and Devin Shore. I asked all of them about her specifically, and they were all just glowing about her hockey. They were all just talking about her hockey knowledge. So anyway, we're all fans, and she's a great hockey mind. So I'd like to see her stay in the organization, and I'd love it if it was as the Firebirds head coach.
Yeah, I would agree with you, gents, in that the points that you've all made, I feel, are valid. I've heard players sing her praises for 2 consecutive seasons. She is often referenced in the same sentence as Ty Cartier when talking about his success and what she helped him do to graduate so fast to the NHL. And then the point of continuity is one that sticks out to me. Again, we're almost in July. We're going to bring in some Joe Schmo that we've never heard of before, all of a sudden to be the leader and architect of our team on the ice. I don't personally see it happen. I'm with you that Jessica Campbell is going to be the next head coach of the Firebirds. Tim, also in agreement?
I am, yeah. 2 months ago, I would have said yes. Then hearing Dan in Seattle, it sounded like he really wanted her to come with him, right? That was just the gut feeling. And then after hearing Dan yesterday kind of talk about his trajectory as a coach, seeing a lot of himself in Jessica, and I know, as Chad, you mentioned, they don't want to. I'd be shocked if they lost her, right? They don't want to lose her in the organization. And with development camp happening in just a few short days, I do believe it's going to come within the organization, this next head coach. And she would be the perfect fit. You're not going to bring somebody from the outside and kind of start from scratch without knowing your team. And Chad, today, the one comment about showing a motivational video rather than ripping somebody's head off is her ability to communicate, which these guys appreciated. And, I think it sounds like a player's coach, and I think all sports and teams are going in that direction with the way today's athlete is built. So, my gut tells me yes, sooner rather than later, Jessica Campbell will be the next head coach.
Should quickly interject that there are 2 vacancies on the Seattle bench beside Dan Bylsma, although neither Jessica Campbell nor Stu Bickle has NHL coaching experience. Be surprised if he brought both of them up to coach alongside him with the Kraken. All right, lastly here, Jent's going to throw out a bunch of names here, kind of rapid fire to wrap up this visit. Connor Carrick, Chris Drieger, John Hayden, Cameron Hughes, Luke Henman, Cole Lynn, Max McCormick, Andrew Podorowski, Jimmy Schultz, Devin Shore, Alice Stejka, and Marion Studenich. They are all unrestricted free agents on July 1, which is to say that many, if not most of those guys, good chance that we won't see them again. I mean, of the returning faces, we know the young guys, we got to see them play and play well this year. There are a few returning veterans under contract, Cale Fleury, Gustav Olofsson. Beyond that, we're looking at a roster right now with Yanni Newman, Ryan Winterton, maybe could be on the Kraken, Leighton Road, Tucker Robinson, Jacob Alonson, David Goyette, Logan Morrison, Ville Otavainen, and then some of the guys that we've been expecting here, i.e. Jagger Furcus to be a regular for the Firebirds. Point being, it's going to be a dramatically changed face from what we've seen the last 2 years. We've referenced there's going to be a new head coach. I'll come back to you, Blake. We've become spoiled. We've become accustomed to great success. We have a very high bar for expectation that whatever team we put on the ice, I think at this point, is going to be a playoff team that's ready to make a deep run in the postseason. Should we keep that expectation, do you think, heading into year 3?
I think they'll make the playoffs. I mean, every team makes the playoffs in the AHL. I don't think they're going to be bottom of the barrel. I don't know that they'll be, winning the Pacific Division again. We'll just have to see. But, this team's committed. This franchise is committed to putting a good product on the ice. We're still a relatively new organization, and they want to keep the fan base as interested and invested as possible. So at the end of the day, it's a business, though. And, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So that's really what it's going to come down to. And, a lot of those guys you listed are going to be gone. We know that. I mean, Drieger's he's definitely gone, right? McCormick, Podorowski, maybe they stick around because, they got families, they got roots here, a little bit older. It kind of depends what they want, right? They want to go take a shot in the NHL or be AHL guys here. So I don't know. We'll see. I think we'll make the playoffs next year. We'll be competitive, but in the Calder Cup Finals, unlikely.
Shed Power, should we continue to have these high expectations as we move into a year 3 that is definitely going to look different from a roster perspective?
I think it is fair to still have high expectations. I mean, there's got to be some people on the roster older than 23, right? So we're going to add, if not, like Blake said, some of our current, people in the Podorowski, McCormick vein, staying. Or we're going to sign some obviously one of the things we don't talk about a lot is how great of a destination we are for free agents as well. So if you're a AHL vet out there that is looking for a place to play, it might be near the top of your list. So we'll add some guys if you think of between the 2 years, someone like Studenic, Connor Carrick, Devin Shore, those are guys we did not have the first year that, were acquired and added in various ways. So guys like that will happen. So we'll have some veterans on the team too. And I do love the young guns, and they got more playing time, I believe, this year than the last year's youth movement. So I think Winterton, Melanson, guys like that, I think will be nice linchpins, road. So I think it'll be fun I think they'll still be very exciting. Can they find veterans, toughness, guys with guile? That's what they'll need to add to the mix before it gets too late.
Close it out with you, Tim O'Brien. As Shad reference, guy like Devin Shore. I mean, he was not a player that signed right when free agency started. He actually signed pretty late. I expect the ownership to continue to spend money to court some of these veterans. We don't know who they are yet, whomever they are, in concert with the young players and some of the returnees I referenced. You got expectations for next year that we can make another deep playoff run with a roster that's going to look a lot different than it has these previous 2 years?
Yeah, I think it depends on how the ECHL translates to the AHL, right? Kansas City's had 2 really good years as well. They've definitely drafted well. They have some depth in the organization. So until I guess they prove us otherwise, yeah, let's keep rolling with the expectations. And I think Steska comes back. I do. I think he's one of those names on the list. I thought it was interesting that Dan mentioned yesterday, be prepared to be that guy, right? Start getting yourself mentally ready to be. There's Joey, then Drieger. You're the next man up. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He was telling us maybe something without telling us something. That's the way I took it.
Yeah, he did definitely make a point of kind of putting a highlighter when he mentioned Alish Steska, and that's a guy that we saw improve throughout the year. Among the spoils, we've obviously had 2 NHL caliber goalies the last 2 years. If Alish Steska is our guy next year, I can live with that. He showed, I think he showed what we needed to see to be a regular throughout the AHL season. That's next year. As for this year past, gents, again, a true pleasure hanging out, talking hockey, spending all this time with the fellowship and camaraderie. Another great season of Firebirds hockey. Thank you for your time. Really enjoyed working with you. Really enjoyed hanging with you.
Thanks, Judd. Yeah, we'll hang out some more in October.
Thanks, Judd. Enjoy your summer, guys. A lot to be proud of. So we'll see you in October.
Thanks, Judd. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
All right.
All right, Firebirds fans, appreciate that visit. Appreciate the time of our guys Blake Arthur, Tim O'Brien, and Shad Powers. As prefaced earlier in this season finale, this season's appreciation episode of Fire and Ice presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. It's a double dip episode. Let us now turn our ears to an epilogue interview that we had opportunity to enjoy with Dan Bylsma. The voices you're going to hear are those of yours truly. You're again going to hear the voice of Tim O'Brien of NBC Palm Springs. You're again going to hear the voice of Shad Powers, columnist for the Desert Sun. You will also hear some questions coming by way of Kenji Ito of KESQ. Before Dan makes his way up yonder northwest to start his work in earnest as head coach of our parent club, the NHL's Seattle Kraken, had a chance to ask him a few final questions, talking with him about everything from his time in the desert, his appreciation for the desert, his appreciation for his team, his true joy of his 2 years here in the Coachella Valley. Also got some questions in there across this media panel about what we might expect next as his successor for the next head coach of the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and did at least get one question, if not a comment, in about the Dan Bylsma bobblehead. All right, without further ado, let's get to that epilogue interview with Dan Bylsma.
Coach.
Yes.
Let's start with this. I'm gonna read you a quote
Uh-oh.
from September 2022, and this is obviously more than 2 months before Acrisure Arena even opened. Here's a quote: "We have a chance to give the Coachella Valley our own team to get excited about and make the desert a tough place to play for the opposition. The atmosphere created by the fans, the energy of the arena, they make for a true home experience. It's our job, our challenge as a team to develop this base, to inspire people, to make Acrisure Arena a place to see great hockey. It doesn't just come by putting good hockey players on the ice, it comes ultimately by winning games. Want to guess who said that?
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't. I that was the goal. That was what we Troy Bodie and Ron Francis, and I was a part of that as well, but that was the goal. And looking back, I'm super proud that we accomplished that.
Yeah, doesn't say anything about it's the first time we ever talked. Didn't say anything about banners, didn't say anything about championships. Said making that place a tough place to play and to create as I've read that, a culture, to create a winning culture, an inspiring place to play. I think it's safe to say, and I hope you believe that you accomplished those things now that we're talking almost 2 years later.
Yeah, I've uh, just say very, very, very proud. All of us are very proud about what the last 2 years have been to this team, to the Valley, to this community, and I think we're all proud of that. And it's been an amazing thing.
Hope fellas don't mind if I ask another here. Just wondering, Coach, if it's on your radar over the last 2 years that the impact, and this is something that I feel like I heard, and I know the other gents have here as well, that the result of your success, there were so many peripherals as a result of what the Firebirds have done under your direction. I'm talking kids playing hockey for the first time, I'm talking adults that haven't put on skates for like 3 decades, getting back into hockey. I'm talking multiple people that have told me, like, I'm careful not to use an expletive, but their life was kind of crummy. Their life was maybe not in a great place. And this inspired them to believe in something different. And there are a lot of social and socioeconomic things that I think happened over the last 2 years. You brought together a lot of people who would not have otherwise been in the same building together. And that had never really much been the case in my desert experience. Were you aware of all those things that were happening over the last 2 years outside of the hockey success?
Well, as I said about that quote, I think that was the goal. It was not just an American Hockey League team. It was not just a development system for Seattle Kraken. The Lewicki's and Ron Francis and Troy Bodie, like they had a vision for what bringing the team to the Valley could do for the community and for Coachella Valley, and they entrusted me with that mission. And so you see that to see all the ramifications, if they're called ramifications, the reverberations that have been positives in this building, the community, the people. I've seen them too. The young lady meets us off the plane today, cheering the Firebirds on, and she's found hockey. She works on her game every morning in the rink here. It's special. It's special.
Got a few more, but I don't want to hog this, so I'll pass it on to whomever.
Tim.
Hey, Coach. The other night you had mentioned that you were sorry. Now, physically, you may not have won the cup, but have you had a chance to reflect on just how much winning you've done, not just on the ice, but off of it? And then to piggyback that, I had mentioned in some of the career moves I've done, this has been the highlight of my career, being a part of something like this from the ground up. And so thank you for that, because that's a huge deal to me. And I know the rest of you guys here on this panel here, this whole organization, this whole group, it's changed all of our lives for the better. Have you had a chance to reflect on that?
Yes, yes, and it's really I maybe not have the right words to say it, but it's really why I said sorry. Sorry to the guys, what they've done. Like they deserved a championship. This team, this Valley, that you deserved a championship, and we came up a little bit short, but we didn't come up short, and building a great team and a great community, and so I'm not I'm not sorry for that. I'm grateful for that, but the sorry is just feel like we came up short, and from what the ultimate goal was, and so I'm still sorry, but still have a lot of pride in what we've done the last 2 years.
Benji?
Hey, Coach. First question is necessarily that you have built such a winning culture here, and it really has translated throughout this valley. So, necessarily, with your new upcoming job coming up, how are you going to bring that winning culture here in Coachella Valley to Seattle?
That's the goal. That's the goal. I think, in large part, the opportunity I'm getting in Seattle is because of what the last 2 years have been to this team and to this valley, and the culture that it's just not myself, but all of us have brought to this organization, and I that's the that's the ultimate goal, and going to Seattle as well. And you can just play that quote over again, Judd, for what what I'm looking at ahead in the future for the job in Seattle.
Yeah, and I have another question.
This NHL job you're about to take on is a little different from your previous ones in the fact that you were the AHL coach of this team beforehand. So obviously intimate knowledge of some of the players. How is that going to be useful or different from your previous NHL stints?
Yeah, like to be clear, Pittsburgh, I got called up from the American League team in Wilkes-Barre to Pittsburgh. Buffalo, completely different scenario. But I think it's a positive thing from a couple standpoints. Like I know the player, like I know the players, even obviously the players that I've coached the last 2 years, but I the players up there have gotten glimpses of me over the last 3 years, and they I'm not going to be an unfamiliar face walking in the door to pretty much all of them, come September when we get to meet again. So I think there's some positives from that. They do know me a little bit, and I know them a little bit. Like I've watched every Kraken game for the last 3 years, and watched them all play, and in addition to that, some of the players that I've coached the last couple of years, are some of them are up there right now, and a few more of the ones that were in Coachella this year are they're gonna matriculate up to the Kraken, and so I know them quite well, and I think it's a huge positive for the players. Like I know Shane Wright. I believe in Shane Wright. I know what he can do, and that's I I hope I hope that gives him confidence that when he gets to the National Hockey League, he's going to have a coach behind the bench that that knows him and believes in him and knows what he can do and give him a chance to do exactly what he can, do as a player. And, I think Ty Carte, um, kind of the same thing. I believe in that player. That player has done a lot of hard work here in Coachella for our team and developed into a goal scorer and a a gritty, no nonsense type of player. Who bring the heat and can score goals. Got a heck of a shot. Like I believe in him, and I think that can help those players, when they make the step to the next level. So, um, but I said I also it's that I think the players also know what to expect from me and what I'm going to be asking of them and what we're going to try to get to. So like Shane Wright and Ty Karche and they have a little leg up on the other guys in that room because they're going to know what I expect and know what I'm going to urge the team on to become. And so whether they know it or not, help they're gonna help me in what my responsibilities are because they know what to expect and they know how to act and they know how to work and they're gonna be the other guys will be the other guys will be watching even though like they're not leaders and per se by themselves, but the other guys will be watching and um, that'll be important to me.
And that's sort of moving forward in these next 2 or 3 super busy weeks. How does that relationship work with Ron Francis as far as you being involved in player personnel decisions and things like that? I mean, obviously you'll have great input on, I'm sure, but how is that going to work as far as putting the team together, free agency, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that relationship will continue to grow here.
Mhm.
Ron has been the type of GM that I have interacted with a fair amount in the last 2 years and talking about our team and our players. And um, so we we've, we have a relationship already and know each other and know what we like, know it. And because of that, I know also what he likes in players and in the team. And, um, that my words and have echoed that, even though you didn't maybe know that.
Mhm.
So we haven't done a deep dive into the free agency, or certainly not the draft. It's not something I'm capable of really adding to or being a part of. But we've had some conversations, and I know what he's looking for in free agency and what we think we need as a team to keep getting better and better and better. And so it having said that, obviously like we lost 2 days ago, but almost immediately, the conversations changed and are looking at those other things that you mentioned. So, and that will continue. I'm leaving tomorrow to go to the draft and um, right from there to development camp after that. Free agency is right around the corner. So, um, that will that has started and it will continue to go from here.
Okay. One last question from me. I wanted to ask you about Stu Bickle and Jessica Campbell. How important were they to the success of this team the last couple of years? And if you could speak to them individually about what makes each of them a good coach.
Yeah, I think I don't know. So if it feels the way to me, too much credit has gone to maybe maybe just me and this journey and what we've done the last 2 years. And um it's certainly not a me thing. It is a we thing, and Jess and Stu are and Colin and to, cannot forget Colin. Like I think Colin's done an amazing job with our goalies. The last 2 years, and see the progress of Joey DeCord. Um, and the each kind of goalie is really individual in their own way, but the development of our goaltenders has been lights out. It's been outstanding. You got Joey DeCord who's, you know, pushing in his career to get to the next level, and um, he helped and guided them in that journey last year, and he got better and better as a goalie, and then he has the opportunity to go on the National Hockey League and be a good goalie there. It's Colin is a big part of that, and Chris Drieger, a different pro in his journey, but I think Colin did an amazing job with those guys, and Stez as well. Like Stez, his journey, 26-year-old pro and coming back to North America, and um, you know, his game as a player and a pro and a person has developed so much this year. And I said to him, I don't know exactly what the future holds for him, but we saw Joey Daccord 2 years ago could take the ball and run and play in playoffs. Chris Drieger sat there and watched. Um, and this year, Chris Drieger was that guy, and Chris Drieger took the ball and ran, and Stez was sitting and watching. And I think he's got to have the mindset that it's going to be, him next year that takes the ball and runs and plays all the games into the finals and get a little bit different result. But and so I think, I said it to Colin the other day, just done an amazing job with her. And Stu and Stu, like I think the benefit of our staff is like we're all a little different. We're all not the same. And I think Stu's done an amazing job with our defense, the last 2 years and the development of the players. But and there are some seasoned pros in there with Tennyson last year, and then there's development guys where Riker's developing as an individual and as a pro, and Stu's been there hand in hand, day in and day out with those guys and developing relationships and developing their skills and pointing them in the right direction. And part of our being a competitive team is all due to that. And Jess, I think they're like she to me is just demonstrate like she's growing in her own job personally and as a coach, and like I see a lot of her development and who she is as a coach in me. I mean, my journey I see in her journey, and she's I just think she's done an amazing job of establishing personal relationships with the guys and guiding them on their journey to keep getting better. And like Ty Carte is a great example of that, but it's also like John Hayden. I think John Hayden grew as a pro and a person, and his game grew in the last 2 years, and it's under. It's with Jessica's guidance, not under. It's with. And I don't know. Sometimes I think I think the impression is that they're along for the ride, but they're a big part of it. They're a big part of what we've been able to establish here with the guys, with the group, and with the team.
Thanks, Coach. You're right. I shouldn't have excluded Colin from the question. Thanks for cleaning up my mess. All right. Thank you.
All right. We got time for a couple more. Judd?
Will you have a say, Coach, in who or whom your successor will ultimately be?
Will I have a say? I've been in consultant with Ron, but Ron is looking at the candidates and the possibilities that are out there, and we've talked about them, talked about what would be best, and so I'm not much more than a consultant. I don't have a say in it, but um, I I do hope I do hope well I think it's an important it's an important job, it's an important role in the organization, and that's the way Ron's approaching it, and we'll get a good one here.
You gonna miss
Right,
us?
I
I don't just mean like peanut gallery here, but you gonna miss us?
I'm gonna yes, I will. I definitely will. And I'm not going to tell you why, but I will. I definitely will.
What am I gonna do with all these now?
Uh,
I got like five of
I
these.
just you can ask it a question next year. If you're missing me, you can just ask it a question. You can answer the question, and I'll just nod it yes and say, "Yep, that's the answer."
All right, Kenji, then Tim.
Yeah, quick. This is going to be my last question, at least on my end. But you've obviously been here for 2 years, and the fans just love you as a coach. I mean, they've all said positive things about you. But necessarily, you as a coach, what are you going to miss or what are you going to miss most about this Valley?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question to answer, because there's a lot that I could say about what I'm going to miss, but um, there's the players, the team, the guys, this building, the passion that the fans have for our team and our group. It's maybe the weather a little bit, maybe the golf course, behind Acrisure here, but really not that at all. It's going to be the people and the guys and the team that I will always take with me.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, one more, Tim.
Yeah, more of a comment than a question, Coach. I just want to thank you personally because I don't know that we'll get a chance to do this again. And on behalf of, I think, all of us here in the media, you were always kind and gracious, and it means a lot. A couple of guys here that hockey we were, somewhat new to, and you were great with us. And I hope you look back and realize you were the right man for the job, and you set the bar real high. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
All right, Firebirds flock, that is going to wrap it up for this finale episode, this season finale episode of the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Over the course of last season into this season, truly appreciative of all your time, your interest, your ears, your ongoing support of this endeavor. Further gratitude goes to the multitude of guests on this particular episode. Our media roundtable, Blake Arthur, Tim O'Brien, and Shad Powers, appreciate their time. Certainly last but not least, far from least, Dan Bylsma. So truly thankful for all that he has brought us, all that he has given us over the course of these past 2 seasons. And to close it out in style, thankful for his time before he makes his way, first to the NHL draft in Las Vegas at the Sphere, and then up to the Kraken's developmental camp, which will start July 1, same day as free agency, by the way. Very, very thankful, very, very appreciative for having an opportunity to chat with Dan one last time before he turns a very sizable and palpable page to his new gig, returning back to the NHL. And I speak not just for me, for the guests that join me, but for all, if not many, if not most, if not every single one of you, that we wish Dan Bylsma all the best as he makes his way back to the National Hockey League. I know that we're going to be following the progress and results of those Seattle Kraken hockey games closer than we ever have before, a great many of us. Thank you again, of course, to the sponsor of this endeavor all season long, Desert Willow Golf Resort. Get those tee times online at desertwillow.com. Quick reminder, some facility maintenance going on July 1 through 4. Going to be back open July 5. Make those tee times for the Mountain View course, or check out the awesome and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy at desertwillow.com. Friends, it has been a straight-up gas. It has been a total blast having an opportunity to visit and connect with you again by way of this fire and ice endeavor. May all of you have a wonderful and safe and pleasant summer with you and yours, until opportunity returns anew to talk Coachella Valley Firebirds hockey with the turn of the autumn season ensuing. Until then, thank you all again so very, very much. And remember, as always, one valley, one team, rising together.